When we speak of being chosen, many people immediately imagine something grand, something full of glory, something that makes them stand out in the eyes of the world. But to be chosen by God is not about pride, it is not about position, and it is not about being elevated above others for the sake of our own ego. To be chosen means to be called into a responsibility that is far greater than anything this world can offer. It is about surrendering to a voice that whispers deep within your heart, a voice that says, "I have set you apart for something eternal." That voice is not always loud, not always dramatic. Sometimes it comes in the quiet of the night, when you are alone with your thoughts. Sometimes it comes in the stillness of prayer. Sometimes it comes through the struggles that break you down only so you can be built up again. And the question that echoes through all of time is this: will you recognize that call when it comes? Being chosen does not mean you are perfect. In fact, God often chooses the ones the world would never expect. He chooses the broken, the weak, the overlooked, the ones who feel unworthy, because in their humility, His strength can shine through. Think about it. If He only called the strong, then no one would see His power. But when He calls the weak, the doubtful, the outcast, and transforms them into instruments of His glory, the world has no choice but to say, "This could only be God." That is what it means to be chosen. It is not about lifting yourself higher. It is about lowering yourself enough for God to lift you in His own way. There are many people who hear God's call but do not recognize it. They think it is just a passing thought, or they dismiss it because they believe they are not qualified. They believe that they must first clean themselves up, fix all their flaws, and reach some level of worthiness before God can use them. But let me tell you, God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. If you wait until you feel ready, you will never step into your destiny, because readiness does not come before obedience. It comes after it. When you say yes to God, when you open your heart to His plan, that is when He begins to shape you, strengthen you, and prepare you for the work ahead. To be chosen is to carry a weight that others may never understand. People may look at you and wonder why you are set apart, why your path seems different, why you cannot go where they go or do what they do. But that is part of the calling. When God sets His hand upon your life, He does not allow you to blend in anymore. He calls you to stand out, not for your own glory, but for His. And it can be lonely at times, because the chosen often walk a road that is narrow, a road that requires sacrifice, a road that demands faith even when there are no clear answers. But in that road lies the greatest joy you could ever imagine, because on that road you are walking hand in hand with the One who created you. Do not be surprised if God disrupts your life when He calls you. Do not be surprised if He begins to shake things up, to close certain doors, to pull you away from certain people, to strip away things you thought you needed. That is His way of clearing the path, of removing distractions, of making room for His purpose. You may not understand it at the time, but later you will see that every closed door was protection, every loss was preparation, and every change was a step toward the destiny He designed just for you. When you recognize God's call, there will be a stirring in your spirit. Something deep within you will not let you rest until you respond. You may try to ignore it, you may try to push it away, but it will keep coming back. Because when God chooses you, He does not let go. He will pursue you, He will chase after you, He will knock at the door of your heart until you finally say, "Lord, I am ready. Use me." And the moment you do, your life will never be the same again. You see, the call of the chosen is not about comfort. It is about change. It is about God changing everything you thought you knew, everything you thought you needed, everything you thought you were, and replacing it with His vision, His purpose, His truth. It is about trading your small plans for His infinite plan. And when you truly recognize that, when you truly embrace it, you will understand that being chosen is the highest honor, the greatest gift, and the most life-changing reality you could ever experience. When God chooses you, He does not simply add a new chapter to your old story. He writes a brand new book. But in order for Him to begin, you must be willing to let go of the old one. You cannot step into the future while holding on to the past. You cannot carry the weight of yesterday's mistakes, yesterday's failures, or even yesterday's comforts, and expect to walk freely into tomorrow. Letting go is not easy, but it is necessary because God cannot pour His new blessings into hands that are already full of what He is asking you to release. So many people miss their calling because they refuse to unclench their fists. They want God's new life, but they do not want to let go of the old life. They want His freedom, but they cling to their chains. They want His peace, but they won't release their bitterness. They want His promises, but they hold on tightly to their fears. And the truth is this: you cannot have both. The old and the new cannot live in the same place. If you are chosen, you must be willing to surrender what no longer belongs to you. Letting go means trusting God with the unknown. It means saying, "Lord, I do not understand why this season ended, why this relationship faded, why this door closed, but I choose to believe that you know what you are doing." It is in that surrender that freedom begins. You see, God cannot bring you to your destiny while you are still tied to yesterday. Every time you cling to the past, you anchor yourself to a place He is calling you to leave behind. But when you release it, you free yourself to move forward into the place He has already prepared for you. Think about the children of Israel when God led them out of Egypt. They were set free, but their hearts kept looking back. They longed for the security of slavery because it was familiar, even though it kept them in chains. Isn't that just like us sometimes? We would rather hold on to what is comfortable, even if it destroys us, than step into something unknown that will truly set us free. But God does not call His chosen to live in chains. He calls them to walk in freedom. And freedom only comes when you stop looking back and start moving forward. Letting go of the old life also means letting go of who you used to be. Some of you still see yourself through the lens of your past mistakes, your past sins, your past failures. You still carry guilt and shame like a heavy weight on your back. But God says, "If I have forgiven you, who are you to keep holding on to what I have already released?" To be chosen is to be washed clean, to be made new, to step into an identity that is no longer defined by what you did, but by who He says you are. If you are chosen, you are not the same person you once were. Stop dragging the old you into the new life He has given you. There will be times when letting go feels like loss. It will feel painful to walk away from people you thought would be with you forever, from dreams you thought would come true, from places you thought were permanent. But every loss in the hands of God is not destruction. It is construction. He removes what cannot stay so that He can make room for what must come. If you try to hold on, you will only slow down the process of His blessing. But if you let go, you will see how every ending was truly a beginning in disguise. And make no mistake, the enemy will tempt you to hold on. He will remind you of what you had. He will whisper that the old life was safer, easier, more predictable. He will try to convince you that stepping into God's plan will cost you too much. But the truth is, the cost of holding on is far greater. Because if you cling to the old, you will forfeit the new. If you hold on to yesterday, you will miss tomorrow. So if you are chosen, learn to release. Release the toxic relationships, the habits that drain your spirit, the fears that paralyze you, the bitterness that poisons your heart. Release the need for control, the desire for certainty, the grip you have on what God is trying to take away. Open your hands, open your heart, and trust that whatever you let go of, He will replace with something far greater. Letting go is not losing, it is positioning. Positioning yourself for the miracle, for the blessing, for the destiny that has been waiting on the other side of your obedience. And when you finally do it, when you finally let go, you will look back and realize that what you thought was sacrifice was actually the pathway to everything you had been praying for. When God sets His hand upon your life, do not expect the journey to be smooth. Do not expect the path to be easy. And do not expect the road to be free of obstacles. To be chosen is to be tested, because trials are the furnace in which faith is refined. Many people believe that once God calls you, everything will suddenly fall into place, doors will open without resistance, and life will become effortless. But the truth is often the opposite. The moment you are chosen, you are marked for a deeper kind of struggle, because God knows that only through the fire can He mold you into what He needs you to become. Trials are not punishments. They are preparations. Every storm you face, every hardship you endure, every burden you carry is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more faithful than you were before. The enemy wants you to see trials as signs that God has abandoned you. But God allows those trials to prove to you that He is closer than ever. When everything around you feels unstable, when life is pressing in from all sides, that is when you discover the depth of His strength. That is when you learn that your faith cannot rest on circumstances, but only on Him. Think about a piece of clay in the hands of a potter. Before it can become a vessel, it must be pressed, stretched, and placed in the fire. Without that process, it remains only a lump of clay. The same is true for you. Without trials, you remain unshaped, untested, and unready for the purpose He has set before you. But with every trial, with every fire, He is molding you into a vessel that can carry His presence, His power, and His glory. Some of you are going through seasons right now that you do not understand. You are asking God, why now? Why this? But what you see as pain, He sees as preparation. What feels like breaking is really building. What feels like loss is really gain in disguise. You may not understand it today, but one day you will look back and realize that the very trial you thought would destroy you was the one that saved you, strengthened you, and pushed you into your destiny. Trials also separate the chosen from the comfortable. Anyone can worship when life is easy. Anyone can praise when the blessings are flowing. But it takes someone truly chosen to lift their hands in the middle of the storm, to keep believing when the answers haven't come, to keep trusting when everything in life seems to say, give up. That kind of faith cannot be faked. It is forged in the fire of trials. And when you come through it, you will not only be stronger, you will carry a testimony that gives hope to others who are still walking through their own storms. The enemy will always attack what is chosen. He knows he cannot steal God's calling from your life, so he tries to make you doubt it. He tries to make you question if you are really chosen, if God really cares, if His promises are really true. But trials are the very evidence that you are chosen. The enemy does not waste his time attacking those who are not a threat. If you are under attack, it is because there is something valuable inside you. There is something about your destiny that terrifies him. That is why he fights you so hard. But here is the good news. The greater the trial, the greater the testimony. Do not despise the process. The very trial that feels unbearable today may be the thing that equips you to handle what God is bringing tomorrow. If He gave you the blessing without the preparation, it would crush you. If He opened the door before you were ready, you would not know how to carry the responsibility. That is why He allows the trial first. Because in the fire you are learning endurance. In the wilderness you are learning trust. In the valley you are learning to depend on Him. By the time you step into your calling, you will be ready to stand firm, not because you are strong, but because He made you strong through every trial you endured. When you are chosen, do not expect a life without storms. Expect storms that reveal His power. Expect valleys that reveal His presence. Expect battles that reveal His victory. Every tear you cry, every struggle you face, every trial you endure is not wasted. It is all part of the plan. It is all part of the preparation. And when the trial is over, you will emerge not weaker, but stronger, not broken, but whole, not defeated, but victorious in Him. When God calls you, He does not just call you to believe. He calls you to obey. Faith without obedience is nothing more than words, and words without action will never change your life. To be chosen is to walk a path that others may not understand, a path that requires you to trust God, even when His instructions seem impossible, even when His plan does not make sense to your human mind. Obedience is the proof of faith. It is easy to say, I believe, but it is far more difficult to step forward when the ground beneath you is uncertain. That is where real faith is revealed, not in what you say, but in what you do when God asks you to move. Obedience will often require sacrifice. God may ask you to let go of something you love, to walk away from what feels secure, to step into a place where you feel unqualified. That is why obedience is such a test. It exposes whether your trust is truly in Him or in the things you can see and control. Many people hesitate at this point. They want the blessings of God, but not the cost of obedience. They want the crown without carrying the cross. But for the chosen, there is no other way. If you want to step fully into His plan, you must be willing to obey Him, no matter the cost, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how uncertain. Sometimes obedience will not make sense to the people around you. They will question why you are walking away from opportunities that seem good, why you are making decisions that seem foolish in the eyes of the world. But obedience is not about pleasing people. It is about pleasing God. And when you are chosen, your standard cannot be the world's opinion. It must be God's command. Even when others do not understand, even when you cannot explain it yourself, you can still stand firm knowing that obedience always leads to blessing. There will be times when obedience feels like walking blindfolded, when every step forward is an act of faith. But it is in those moments that God reveals himself most clearly. When you take a step without knowing where it will lead, you are saying, Lord, I trust you more than I trust myself. And God honors that kind of faith. He may not show you the whole picture at once, but he will give you enough light for the next step. And as you keep walking in obedience, the path becomes clearer, the direction becomes certain, and you begin to see how every step of faith was leading you closer to his purpose. The chosen cannot live like everyone else because they are called to a higher standard. Obedience will separate you. It will demand that you turn away from shortcuts, compromises, and easy options that could derail your calling. It will mean saying no to things others say yes to, and yes to things others are too afraid to accept. That separation may feel lonely at times, but it is also the place where God's presence becomes most real. When you choose his way over your own, you begin to experience a depth of peace and joy that the world cannot give and cannot take away. Think about the great figures of faith throughout history. They were not great because they were powerful, talented, or extraordinary in themselves. They were great because they obeyed. They listened to God's voice and followed, even when it cost them everything. And that is the secret for you as well. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to be the strongest. You do not need to be the most skilled. You just need to be willing to say yes when God calls, because obedience is the doorway to destiny. And do not forget this: obedience is not always about the big decisions. Sometimes it is in the small, daily choices where your faith is proven. Choosing to forgive when you would rather hold a grudge. Choosing to love when you would rather walk away. Choosing to pray when you feel too tired. Choosing to give when you would rather keep. Those small acts of obedience build the foundation of faith that allows you to stand strong when the big tests come. God will never ask you to obey without giving you the strength to do it. His commands are always followed by his power. What seems impossible in your own strength becomes possible when you surrender to him. And every time you obey, your faith grows deeper, your spirit grows stronger, and your life moves closer to the purpose for which you were chosen. When God chooses you, he never leaves you empty. He does not call you into a new life only to abandon you with nothing to stand on. With the calling comes the equipping. With the purpose comes the power. Too many people look at themselves and say, I am not strong enough. I am not smart enough. I am not worthy enough. But the truth is, God does not expect you to carry his calling in your own strength. He places his spirit within you, and with that spirit comes the power to endure, to overcome, and to walk boldly into the destiny he has designed for you. Think about it: if God only gave you a calling without the power to fulfill it, he would be setting you up for failure. But he is a faithful God, and he gives his chosen everything they need to accomplish what he has spoken. That means when you feel weak, he becomes your strength. When you feel lost, he gives you direction. When you feel unqualified, he covers you with grace. The chosen are not defined by their own abilities, but by his presence living inside them. When you are chosen, you carry authority that the world cannot explain. This is not human authority that comes from titles, money, or position. This is spiritual authority that comes from God himself. It is the kind of authority that allows you to speak peace into chaos, to declare hope where there is despair, to stand firm when the storms of life try to knock you down. It is the authority to resist the lies of the enemy and to walk in the truth of God's promises. And when you live with that kind of authority, people notice. They may not understand it, but they cannot deny it, because it is not you they are seeing. It is God working through you. Purpose is another gift God gives to the chosen. Before you were even born, he wrote a purpose over your life, a reason for your existence, a mission only you can fulfill. Too many people wander through life without direction, searching for meaning in things that never satisfy. But when you are chosen, you don't have to wonder if your life matters. You know it does. Every step you take, every word you speak, every act of faith becomes part of a greater plan. That sense of purpose gives you strength when you feel weary, courage when you feel afraid, and hope when life feels uncertain. Do not think that power and purpose mean an easy life. They mean a meaningful life. The enemy will try to make you believe that you are powerless, that your life has no direction, that your struggles are proof God has forgotten you. But the very opposite is true. The fact that you feel resistance, the fact that you face battles, is evidence that you are chosen for something greater. The enemy does not fight those who pose no threat. He fights the chosen because he knows what they carry. And what you carry is the Spirit of God, the power of His Word, and the unshakable purpose He placed within you. The chosen often underestimate what God has placed in them. You may see yourself as ordinary, but God sees you as extraordinary through His Spirit. You may think your life does not matter, but God has placed you exactly where you are for a reason. The conversations you have, the people you influence, the prayers you whisper in secret, all of it matters. All of it carries weight in the kingdom of God. Sometimes the greatest displays of power are not the loud, dramatic moments, but the quiet acts of faithfulness that no one else sees. That is where true strength is revealed. When you walk in the power and purpose God has given you, you will begin to see life differently. Challenges no longer look like dead ends. They look like opportunities for God to reveal His strength. Delays no longer feel like denials. They feel like preparation for something greater. And even pain begins to take on new meaning because you realize that every tear, every struggle, every trial is shaping you into someone who can carry His presence with greater depth and authenticity. God's power is not just for you to survive, it is for you to thrive, to stand tall, to walk boldly, to shine brightly in a dark world. His purpose is not just about your story, it is about how your story connects to others, how your testimony becomes a lifeline for someone else who is searching for hope. The chosen are never chosen for themselves alone. They are chosen so they can bring light, healing, and truth into the lives of others. So when you feel weak, remember He has given you strength. When you feel lost, remember He has given you direction. When you feel ordinary, remember He has placed His extraordinary Spirit within you. And when you wonder if your life matters, remember this: you are chosen, and with that choosing comes power and purpose beyond anything you could ever imagine. When God chooses you, it is never just about you. His hand upon your life is not meant to stop with your own transformation, but to ripple outward, touching those around you, reaching hearts that might never have known Him otherwise. You are not chosen to hide your light, to keep your faith private, or to live in isolation. You are chosen so that through you others can see Him more clearly. Your life becomes a living testimony, a story of hope, a reflection of grace that points people not to yourself but to the one who called you. The world is full of darkness, broken homes, shattered dreams, people carrying invisible burdens that weigh them down every single day. And into that darkness, God places His chosen ones as lights. Not because they are perfect, not because they have it all together, but because His light shines brightest through those who were once broken themselves. That means your story, your struggles, your scars are not wasted. They become the very evidence of His goodness. People may not read a Bible, but they will read your life. They will watch how you endure trials, how you forgive, how you keep faith when life is hard. And in watching, they will see God's hand at work. Being chosen means living with an awareness that your life is not just your own. Every conversation carries weight. Every act of kindness has eternal impact. Every step of faith becomes an invitation for someone else to believe. You never know who is watching, who is listening, who is silently being strengthened by your example. Sometimes it's not the words you preach, but the life you live that speaks the loudest. The chosen become living sermons, sermons of resilience, of compassion, of courage, of faith. But this is not always easy. Being a light in a world that loves the dark can feel overwhelming. People may mock you, reject you, or misunderstand you. They may try to dim your light, to make you blend in, to silence your voice. But remember this: light was never meant to blend into darkness. Light exists to expose it, to challenge it, and to overcome it. And even the smallest light, when placed in total darkness, cannot be ignored. That is the power you carry when you are chosen. To be chosen also means to carry a burden for others. You begin to see beyond yourself, beyond your own struggles and desires, and into the pain of those around you. Your heart breaks for the broken, your spirit aches for the lost, your prayers extend beyond your own needs and into the lives of others. And that burden is not something to run from. It is proof that God is working through you. He gives His chosen eyes to see what others ignore, ears to hear the silent cries of those who are hurting, and hands to reach out when others turn away. And the beauty of it is that you do not have to be perfect to be a light. In fact, it is often your imperfections that God uses most powerfully. When people see that you have walked through pain and still found peace, when they see that you have faced loss and still found hope, when they see that you have been broken and still carry joy, they cannot deny the reality of God in your life. Your testimony becomes a beacon. It tells others, if God could do it for me, He can do it for you too. Never underestimate the impact of your faithfulness. Sometimes you will feel like your efforts are small, like your influence is insignificant. But the kingdom of God does not measure impact the way the world does. What looks small in your eyes may be eternal in someone else's. That prayer you prayed, that smile you offered, that word of encouragement you spoke could be the very thing that keeps someone else from giving up. And when you live with that awareness, every moment of your life takes on new meaning. God does not call His chosen ones to hide in safety. He calls them to step into the world as salt and light. He calls them to carry His presence into their homes, their workplaces, their communities, their nations. You may never stand on a stage, you may never preach to thousands, but you will preach every day with the way you live. And the lives you touch, the hearts you influence, the seeds you plant will bear fruit long after you are gone. So remember this, if you are chosen, your light is not meant to stay hidden. It is meant to shine, to guide, to inspire, to awaken hope in those who are still searching. And the greatest joy of all is knowing that through your life, others may come to see the God who chose you.